Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. Just a disclaimer right now that there will be spoilers throughout this video. I will try not to spoil anything too big, but I'm also not going to sidestep everything because then it's very difficult to explain what I liked and what I didn't like, and it's just a lot more difficult to do a review when you try to leave out names and descriptions and everything. So there will be a few spoilers, but hopefully nothing too big. I picked up To Kill a Kingdom in a thrift store because I'd heard of it before, and because the cover looked beautiful and intriguing, and I like mermaids and pirates and sirens and fantasy, and so I thought that I would really love this book. I almost put it down just a few chapters into it because I was not loving it, but I did power through and read it, and I'm glad that I finished it. It did have a very good ending that I was happy with, so I'm glad that I stuck with it, but it's not one of my favorite books, and I will get into those reasons later. I'm going to give you the pros first and then the cons, and a lot of people have really loved this book, so just because I didn't like it doesn't mean it's not a good book, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't read it. It's just my opinion, and I'm trying to be very honest here and just give my opinion no matter what it is. So the pros for To Kill a Kingdom, one of them was the genre. It is fantasy, and so if you like mermaids and sirens, that is a big part of this book. The main characters are, one of them is a siren and the other one is a pirate, basically. So, very intriguing. I did like that. I did like that it was fantasy. It was also fast-paced, which is something that I need in a book in order to stay interested. I'm not a big reader, and if a book drags, then I tend to lose interest very quickly, but this was fast-paced. I think it was very well done. A good introduction to your characters, and just good pacing throughout it, good timing. Nothing seemed to drag too much to me. So the main characters are Lyra, a siren, and Elien, a prince/pirate. I didn't really like either one to begin with. I especially didn't like Lyra because she just seemed kind of mean and cruel, and I didn't like her very much at all. Elien, when he was introduced, I didn't like very much because he didn't seem quite real to me. I didn't think that how he was being portrayed was how he should be portrayed, which is silly because he's not my character and he can be portrayed however the author wants to portray him. But to me, it just didn't really seem to fit some things the reader knew about him. I did end up liking him a lot later on, and I really liked the banter that he had with his crew. At first, it didn't seem to make quite as much sense to me, but as the book went on and as you learn more about Elien, it did make a lot more sense. So I did end up liking him later on, and I did end up liking Lyra a little bit more too. I really liked the romance in the book. It was a very great enemies to lovers romance, even if it was a bit predictable. I mean, it's a little bit hard to have a romance like that and not have it be predictable, but it was still very well done and I did enjoy it very much. And the ending was possibly my favorite part because it was very satisfactory ending. I'm very happy with the last chapter and with how things turned out for our main characters and for everybody involved. So a very satisfactory ending made the book worth it, I think. Alright, now for the cons. I'll try to be nice. I didn't feel like there was anything particularly outstanding about the writing. It seemed fairly average to me, and there were a few lines that I didn't like because they seemed lazy or just kind of unnecessary, like laughable almost to me. Just a couple times, not all the time, but there were a few lines that I really did not like. One of them was very early on in the book, which was bad because I was already having doubts about this book, and then to have one of those lines right in my face in the beginning, it was like, great, I'm not going to make it through this. But overall, not bad writing, just not great either. Seemed fairly average to me. I think part of that reason is because it's written in first-person present, which I don't read very many novels in first-person present, and I think I've had bad experiences with them in the past. First-person present is something that is very hard to write and have it be believable and to have it work well. A lot of the times it just seems forced or unnatural, but if a writer can make it seem natural, then that's great and it works really well. And I have a friend who writes short stories in first-person present, and I've never had a problem reading them. I've never read them and thought that it felt awkward. It always has made sense. But I think a lot of the times it's difficult to write it that way, and so I don't generally like books with first-person present, and the whole book is written in first-person present. Now, I did get used to it once I figured out that that was kind of what was throwing me. I got used to it and I did like it, and I think it's done fairly well. Maybe not the best, and maybe if the writing was a little bit higher quality, this wouldn't stand out as much, but just something to watch out for if you're not a fan of first-person present. The whole book is first-person present. Something that I didn't really like was that some of the characters were unnecessarily ugly. Some of the creatures were, like the mermaids. And I guess if this is how the author had them in her head, she described them very well, but to me it just seemed a little bit unnecessary, and that's something I don't really like in books or movies or series. There's nothing wrong with it. Some people do like that, and if that's how the author imagines them, then that's totally fine. But for me personally, I don't really like it when the characters are just unnecessarily ugly and crazy. I don't really see the point. So some of the creatures in this book were very ugly, and that was brought up again and again, and it just kind of, I didn't like it any time that it was brought up, so it kind of lessened the book for me. Along a similar note, there was one character who was unnecessarily evil, and sometimes this is necessary to the plot, but what makes a good villain or a good antagonist is that they also have some redeeming qualities, and that's what makes them a little bit more relatable and makes them an even better villain, because you almost want to side with them sometimes, but then you're reminded of the reason that they are bad. So usually your character will not be just completely evil and chaotic unless they're a sociopath or something. Then they might be purely bad, but there's a reason. So the antagonist in this book was just evil for no reason, it seemed. And I really was not a fan of that. I think she could have been given some redeeming qualities, or I think she could have been humanized a little bit better or a little bit more. But again, doesn't mean that it's wrong to do this. I just really don't like it when that's how a character is written, when that's how an antagonist is written. I think they should have a little bit of humanization to them. I think I've already said that I didn't really like the main characters for a while, but that's just, I'm going in order of what's in my notes right now and trying to make sure I hit every point. So I didn't really like them at first, but like I said, I did come to like them eventually. It just took a little bit longer, and usually you want your main character to catch the reader's attention and to be liked immediately. You want your readers to root for them. And I just wasn't rooting for the main character for a very long time. Overall, I thought the plot was rather predictable. It's kind of the same basic plot for every fantasy novel of this type. So it was fairly predictable, but there were some twists along the way that added some interest. So I did enjoy the twists, and sometimes, when you thought that there were going to be no more hurdles, a new interesting hurdle would be introduced for the main characters. So there were some twists, but overall fairly predictable, even relating to the romance between the main characters. It was pretty obvious that that's how it was going to end with them. But overall, not my favorite book, definitely things I didn't like, but there were some things that I did like as well. And like I said, just because I didn't like it doesn't mean it's a bad book, or doesn't mean there's really any reason that people shouldn't read it. If you like fantasies and sirens and you don't have a problem with any of the things that I had a problem with, then go ahead and read it. Just, in my opinion, not my favorite book, not the best book out there, and I probably will not be reading it again. But I think I'll keep it on my shelf because it is very pretty, and I want to spray the pages and just keep it for looks mostly. But not my favorite read. Well, that's my review of To Kill a Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of this review. If you've read the book, let me know if you agree or disagree with what I've said. I do not know everything about writing, and I am not some great writing figure that you should take all of your advice from. I just know a bit, and I've written my own book, and it's kind of fun to dissect these different books. So let me know what you think. And I hope you all have a blessed day.